I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to I Mix What I Like right here in Black Power Media. What's up again? I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. A little different look, a little different setup. We still making some adjustments over here, but we have a very big show. Some very special guests. And in light of being officially co-signed last week by the official Vybe Band, over whom I'm talking right now, I want to share with you all, if I could beg my guests' indulgence, want to share with you all a little bit of the Vybe Band as we welcome folks in this morning and invite others to join you and get some of this boom bap breakfast, this pocket breakfast. We're going to laugh, we're going to dance, we're going to live. Yeah, keep me right there, everybody, wait a minute. But I want to share with you all. Let me share with you all Let me share with you all a little something. Because this is how I feel. This is how I feel as we welcome you all in.
Good to see you, Black Brown, Sweet Nikita, Miss Rhonda.
Come on in, everybody.
Happy birthday, Miss J.
It's my birthday month. I might be out there to see them again.
Rhea, Sweet Sharita, party with me.
Come on, everybody.
All night long, say what? That's right, baby.
Oh, what's up, Kalanji?
Bring it to the
What up, what up?
I feel the same way, my man. When I see you, I get a little happy. Come on.
Okay.
Hey. When I see you, yeah, I get a little
That's
happy.
right. Let's go, everybody. Come on in. Get a little of this boom bap breakfast. We're going to be talking about Mumia this morning. Political prisoners, freedom.
I get a little happy. Hey, Francine, I get a
That's
little
what's up.
happy.
Quaker Anarchist, what's up?
Well, guess what? When I see you, yeah.
That's how I feel when I see you, Sugar Shan. What's up?
Randy,
Good morning.
I get happy when you party with me. Guess what? When I see you, yeah.
But I did want everybody to see a little bit of what Vybe Band looks like and what the party looks like when grown folks get out there and go a little bit. That little bit of that two-step. We're going to have a little bit of fun as we get into some serious analysis. Come on now.
Start to blush when somebody says your name. And my stomach is a pain. See you walk in my direction, I go the other way.
Come on, everybody. Let's go.
Try to stand on my knees.
That's right. This is how you start the
What's
day.
happening to me? In the body, can you tell me what it means? I lay my head on my pillow.
Libras 2 now.
He got me staring
Libras
out the
2.
window. Who's gonna stop
Sagittarius in the building.
Sagittarius.
Act like y'all know.
Good morning.
Know what we do around here.
Come on now. Let's go, everybody. Tell somebody to come join you this morning. We have a very special show, very special guests.
It's going down. Dr. Ball's in the building. He ready this morning.
Labor Day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Listen, I scribble X and O's on my notebook. Checking out my hair and my nails.
Yes.
Hey, yo, who is this, Jerry?
This is Vybe Band. I don't know. They've switched out singers. This is a few years old now.
Okay.
But this is how it is, though. This is.
I wonder if you know, or do you have a clue? Yeah. I lay my head
Get that
on my
pocket,
pillow.
that percussion.
You got me staring out the window. We're gonna stop for a sign.
And I've been in the building when they've hit this song, and it's beautiful.
I'm gonna have to stop through DC more often.
Yeah, you really do, man. And I'll let you know, because I might be out here for my birthday this month. I might have to go check Vybe Band out again this month.
We might have to come through for your born date, man.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if they're ready for that, though.
Beautiful. Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd. That's exactly.
Love.
Folks, you know, nobody doing too much. Everybody's old enough to stay that two-step. Nobody's gonna hurt themselves.
Black love.
Right on, Lisa. Love is back. Love back at you.
Sitting so sexy, boy. Yeah. Oh no.
Right on. A little early, but just thank you very much.
Hey, Fox, hold me down. Listen. Well, guess what?
That pocket, I'm telling you. It
Holy
cures all bad
Hey.
moods.
Get happy
everybody get a little taste of this.
Hey, Tony.
Let's go ahead and get into the show. We got a big show. Let's talk about Mumia. Let's talk about political prisoners. These days of Black August here, Black Power Media. Back in a quick second. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, Kalanji? Welcome everybody back to our Mix What I Like here, Black Power Media. Kalanji, Changa in the building.
We in the building today, baby. It was good. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great now.
Okay.
I'm as good as could be expected. I feel much better. A little bit of Vybe Band in the morning.
I mean, you came in charge. I was like, I thought I was on the wrong channel. I'm like, hold up. Who on with today?
No. Just a little bit of the pocket to get the mood right. Okay. But let's get to it because we have a bunch of special guests this morning. Yes. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring everybody up on screen. It is great to see everybody. Dr. Johanna Fernandez, Mama Julia Wright, Professor Mark Taylor, all here joining us to talk a little bit about Mumia, political prisoners, the move of the papers of Mumia, and discussion of move to Brown University. Okay. Among many other things, of course, Dr. Johanna Fernandez is a professor at Baruch College and has been in New York and has been one of the leading voices, not only in documenting and supporting, but encouraging the freedom of Mumia and other political prisoners. She's also an author of a number of writings on the Young Lords, one of which my children have finished reading not too long ago. So we welcome her back to this platform. Same with Mama Julia Wright, among many other things. Daughter of famed author Richard Wright, activist, poet, writer in her own right, and just an elder guide to the platform. And we welcome her back as well. And then, of course, Dr. Mark Lewis Taylor, among many other things, is the Maxwell M. Upson Professor of Religion and Society at Princeton Theological Seminary. Welcome to you, sir, as well. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the platform. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's an honor. Have you all
absolutely
on the platform today? Beautiful day. Yes. Yes. So, Mama Julia, how you doing?
Fine from across the pond. And happy and congratulations, Joanna. You did it again.
Always do it.
And again.
We're going to change your name to do it all.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yes.
She the new Lord of the Underground?
She the new Lord of the Underground. And she's Sagittarius, ladies and gentlemen. So you gotta get that right. That's what we do around.
Real hip hop heads will appreciate that reference. But anyway, shout out to Do It All in the Lords. Anyway, please explain what are we congratulating? Please specify, detail, explain.
I think Julia has the best handle on these developments than any other person in the movement. So I think Mama Julia should begin.
Well, I want to say that we have with Pam and Joanna such brilliant strategy in this movement that I sort of pity our opponents. I don't feel compassion for them, but yeah, I pity them. Your move, Joanna, again, reflects what you did a year ago, was it? When you sent such a left curve, unannounced, and brought Colin Kaepernick to the mix. They were like behind the thin blue wall of their silence, which protected their secrets and their corruption and what they didn't want known about what they did to the Mumia narrative. And you so elegantly, calmly, with total poise, brought Colin Kaepernick to the table. And yet again, you did it with the Mumia papers because you knew that Mumia has so little time. His time is ticking, and we could go into that. You will go into that. To change the police narrative into the Mumia narrative. So that's what I see that is so brilliant, Joanne. I think.
Thank you.
So go ahead.
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
Well, I just wanted to for clarity, just in case anybody is unaware, just in case people for some unknown, ridiculous reason are not constantly tuned into this platform, that the news specifically is, as it was reported here from Brown University, to advance research. And why are my notes showing? I hate when this lags like this. Where are my notes? To advance research on incarceration, Brown acquires personal papers of prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal, the prison records, correspondence, and artwork of Abu-Jamal and related materials from advocate Johanna Fernandez will anchor a collection at the John Hay Library focused on first-person accounts of incarceration. Oh, there they are. The John Hay Library, home to Brown University's special collections in partnership with Brown's Pembroke Center, has acquired a vast set of records, writings, and artwork from political activist Mumia Abu-Jamal, a journalist who was convicted of murder and sentenced to death in 1982. Abu-Jamal's incarceration and sentencing have stirred fierce national debates about racial injustice and the ethics of the death penalty. The library has also obtained related personal papers from Johanna Fernandez, a Brown class of 1993 graduate and esteemed historian of social movements in 20th century American history, who has been a longtime advocate for Abu-Jamal and has for decades maintained his innocence. Questions about Abu-Jamal's guilt have prompted deep legal examination and fueled international discussion since the 1980s, and the acquisition of his papers is part of a broader initiative to advance research on incarceration, curated by Mary Murphy, the Nancy L. Buck 65 Pembroke Center archivist. The Abu-Jamal papers will serve as anchors for the new strategic collecting focus at the John Hay Library, Voices of Mass Incarceration. So just to give some of that context, here's the curator and PhD graduate going over the documents, and I think I included this link in the show description so people can see more from at least what this announcement has to say, and what the expressed goals and aims are. But yes, Professor Fernandez, did you want to elaborate, say anything else?
So
yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I know that people are wondering how the hell do we get here? How did this come into being? It seems to have come out of the woodwork. The story begins with Mumia's transfer to general population after his death sentence was determined to have been obtained through unconstitutional means. That was in 2011, I believe. That was in 2011 that he finally made it to the general population. I think the decision came down in 2010. I was talking to Mumia on the phone, and he says to me in passing, I'm about to get rid of all this stuff because they're pressuring me to get rid of it as a precondition to the transfer from death row to general population. So they wanted him to throw away everything that had nurtured his soul from the moment he was imprisoned on death row. And if you look at these boxes, there must not have been just an inch of space for Mumia to walk in his cell, because cells are pretty small. But it was packed with letters and drawings and manuscripts and books. So I tell him, are you nuts? You need to, absolutely not. You can't throw any of that away. This is history. I was, of course, talking with a historian's cap on, not with my scholar activist hat on. This is how historians write history. And unfortunately, the archive where papers are stored are predominantly male and predominantly white, predominantly wealthy male and predominantly wealthy white. So historians, this is a treasure trove for historians who are interested in understanding something about the criminal justice system. I'll take a step back and say that the reason why the United States has been able to imprison so many people, 2/3 of which are Black and Latino people, is because they've been able to dehumanize them. They appear in the public square as menaces to society, disconnected from family, friends, husband, wife, children. And what these papers do is that they illuminate the human being. So literally, I begged Mumia over several conversations to send me those boxes. And you can imagine the cost of sending boxes that weigh a lot. He must have spent over $400. I just sent a box and it cost me $50. He probably paid more. So that's how the story begins. He sends me the 40 boxes and I store them in all of my closets in my New York apartment. My friends called me the box lady. They couldn't understand why the hell I was living this way without absolutely no space. But I knew that this was living history that needed to be preserved. Fast forward to 2020, Brown University had been trying to acquire my papers because I was part of the largest student movement probably since the 1960s in the 1990s at Brown. Over 1,000 students occupied Brown's University Hall against its policy of looking at a student's ability to pay in the admissions process. That's called need-aware admissions. So Brown University was the last Ivy League to drop this class-based admissions process, right? We tend to think of affirmative action as a thing, but before affirmative action, there was affirmative action for wealthy people in this country. And that didn't end at Brown University till fairly recently. So that's why there was this massive student movement. And I was one of 3 leaders of that movement. 300 of us got arrested. Again, 1,000 people occupied City Hall, a land trust. We got the university threw the book at us. We all had felonies. It was a huge internationally covered movement. So because of that, I've been back to Brown to discuss this movement. Everyone wants to hear about it. And that's part of the reason why they wanted to acquire the papers. So
right on.
I had the boxes and I thought, well, these maybe should go to the Schomburg, Mumia's boxes. I never thought that they would go to a university. So literally like 3rd, 4th, 5th conversation in with Brown University about acquiring my papers, I'm like, I'm not that old, kids. Why do you want to acquire my papers now? I've got so much to do. This is not convenient for me now. And then it was like, oh my God, I've got Mumia's papers. And we entered into negotiation. Mumia was involved, of course. And I trust Brown to preserve these papers because I know the institution. All universities are racist and have problems and can trace their history to the institution of slavery. But they're also institutions that preserve history. And I know that there are people at Brown committed to that mission. And so here we are. As soon as I told them this, it was a mic drop. They were shocked. And it is my understanding that this is the only and largest archive of this kind of a prisoner who's alive. It's the largest repository of a prisoner's papers ever to be collected by by a library. And by the way, I did approach our people's entities and libraries, and they were not interested.
So, real quick, because I know you mentioned it. You mentioned the Schomburg, that would include them as well. Just for the record, I mean, facts are facts. If that's,
I can't comment on that right now. But it's just, I tried. I listen. Mass incarceration has become a trendy topic in the university. I have, in fact, kept my academic work separate from my activism around Mumia and mass incarceration. But in that interim, mass incarceration has taken over the academy as a subject of study, which I think is a good thing. But the objective of these papers is to actually put a voice to the imprisoned, and let the prisoner speak. And it shouldn't only be Mumia, it should be prisoners. It's one of the most influential institutions in American society. Apparently, it's the third largest employer in America. Our society is organized around punishment. So shouldn't we let the people inside speak their truths through what they produce, through their struggles internally with the institution?
If I could, I just wanted to share one more part from the story from Brown, just to make sure people, because I was myself interested. But the new collection that is being built builds on a number of rich resources for those who study 20th and 21st century mass incarceration. The university's special collections are home to original copies of the Greenfield Review Press, a 1970s and 1980s magazine that famously printed poetry by people who were incarcerated. In addition, the Pembroke Center archives include numerous letters from incarcerated sex workers in Rhode Island and beyond, as well as an array of zines that feature commentary on prison systems in the U.S. The Hay Library is committed to expanding the size and scope of its scholarly resources related to incarceration in the years to come. And because Abu-Jamal's story is inextricable from Philadelphia's modern history, the John Hay Library is actively seeking ways to make the materials regularly accessible to residents of that city. They plan to digitize the collection to ensure expanded access, fund research trips for Philadelphia students so they can engage in hands-on work with materials, and partner with Philadelphia area cultural heritage organizations to raise awareness of the collection's rich resources, among other initiatives. This isn't solely Brown's collection. It's a collection for everyone, Strauss said. These first-hand accounts provide essential information about these personal experiences of incarcerated Americans that can't be found in large-scale data. As is reflected in the phrase, "You belong here," emblazoned on the Hay Library's wall, we are committed to not only collecting diverse materials that illuminates the most pressing issues of our time, but also providing open access to that material for all researchers. So just so we can, again, fill in some context and, just be honest and be fair, and something that I also want to raise publicly because I appreciate it. So first, just because sort of stemming from this line here, Abu-Jamal's story is inextricable from Philadelphia's modern history. I mean, there's a lot of ways to phrase Mumia's relationship to Philadelphia and what that represents, and so on and so forth. But this conversation started because when I heard of this news, sort of just in passing, and certainly not directed in any way personally to you, Professor Fernandez, I just said in passing, like, I'm just generally uncomfortable with any institutionalization at all of Black and brown people's history, of the history of oppression and struggle, I've always had, whether it was the Smithsonian taking in hip hop, doing the hip hop thing and all of that, whether it was the Black Power, thing at the Smithsonian as well some years ago. I just have always been uncomfortable. So when I heard of this, I was concerned about what would it mean for Mumia's papers to be at Brown. What does this mean symbolically, not to mention literally, in terms of access and research. And I appreciate that, Mama Julia, you reached out and said, more or less politely and better than I'm saying here, you said, I heard what you said, and I think we should have a conversation, because if I may say, I think you were saying to me that you thought I misinterpreted the situation and misunderstood what was happening here. So, of course, I'm always happy to have these conversations and to have you all as guests. So that worked out perfectly. But anyway, that was it. I just wanted to just lay that out and to go from there. And anyone, including you, Professor Taylor, are welcome to jump in. Mama Julia, if I didn't get any of that right, please check me on that, etc., and so forth.
Well, I'll come after you, Mark.
Okay. Thanks for having me on. And I think from the perspective of the 26 years I've been working with universities and educators at colleges on the Mumia movement and educators for Mumia, your instincts, Professor Ball, are right on to raise this as a concern. I've seen all kinds of ways that the Imperial University, as we call it, subverts, makes trendy, if they don't actually exclude the voices like Mumia's from consideration in an academic setting. I think that in this respect, it's very important what Johanna pointed out to me very early on, that last paragraph is very important in the Brown University press release, where they say these are the people's papers. I think what we need to do is not just celebrate the achievement, and it is a major achievement. And this is how I read Dr. Fernandez's advice about holding their feet to the fire on this. We need to make sure that the people from racialized poor communities in the area and in the country have access and go to this collection. Our imperial universities now, with all of their racism, their ruling class ideologies and the like, they are security institutions in many ways. They control access. And if we can sharpen things up so that they have to open up to regular traffic from grassroots communities to use this collection and to learn from it and to be present with their bodies and their communities on these campuses that are often so exclusive, that's a major step. So I see this as both achievement and a toehold for the movement to press the case against the universities, which are a major power in the prevailing system that we're up against in this movement and many of our justice movements.
Yeah, I would like to add here that I'm in a bind because my father's papers are at Yale, and I know that there's skull and bones at Yale and that Pancho Villa's skull is there. And I could go on and on about my nightmares. I thought it was
Geronimo.
Oh, both. And more, Jared. We could have nightmares, okay? But what I'm trying to say is Asada is so healing when she says, the dead are gratefully dead. Let's take care of the living. So let's take care of Mumia. And there's such a time factor here. And that's where Johanna was brilliant, because we're all aware that with his congestive heart failure, Mumia, if he were in the community, would have 50% chance of surviving in 5 years. But because he's in prison and he's a survivor of the whole for 3 decades and of so many comorbidities, how many years does he have left? I mean, I don't even want to think of it. But the Department of Corrections and the FOP sure are thinking of it. Okay, and that's why there are all those delaying tactics in the courts. So there's the time factor, and that this is the People's Papers is therapy for Mumia, because I don't know. I can't speak for Mumia. So Johanna, you'd have to tell us how he'd feel healed by this. But I know that if Mumia feels sensory deprivation, we people on the outside feel sensory deprivation, and heavily so. We feel intellectually deprived, and we feel leadership deprived. And that by giving us back these papers that are in the first person singular, and that are Mumia living and ticking and kicking and resisting, is giving us back the leadership we're lacking and everything that COINTELPRO tried to take from us when they arrest our leaders.
Man, I'd like to say first and foremost, thank you all, the three of you, for even coming on the platform today. That's number one, because of the fact that oftentimes, you know, when criticism is raised, folks just they choose to ignore the situation and dance around it, bounce around it. So I applaud you all for coming head on and saying, look, this is what the deal is, you know what I'm saying, and this is how we move in, and I appreciate the move. Let me just say that. And for folks who you know, sit back and say, well, you know, why didn't you take it to a Black institution? Of course, we know that the institution is institution when it comes to the U.S. When it comes to the United States of America, Black, white, whatever, it's the same program. So much so I can recall Daruba has some artwork at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights here in Atlanta. And I remember he wanted to do a book signing in front of this big wall painting that he did. And they told him he couldn't do a signing in front of his own work that they have in this particular Black institution. You know what I mean? So when we talk about access, you know, gatekeepers are gatekeepers. I wanted to ask, you know, because we're speaking about Mumia, we're talking about Mumia today. More importantly, how is he now? How's he doing today? You know what I'm saying? What is his current status health-wise? Because, you know, we're talking as if, you know, we're talking about the papers, but how is he as a human, as a man right now?
Mark, you want to go?
Yeah, I try to talk to him twice a month by video visit, if not a personal contact visit. I know Johanna is in regular contact with him too. Every time I start every visit with his health, and I am on a Mumia health committee that monitors his well-being in every way that we can. Has medical, at least one medical doctor on that committee. Julia has been on. In fact, she was instrumental in getting that committee started. So we're starting from that material health. Hey, as having congenital heart failure and surgery and COVID, he's been at risk. But every time I ask him, he says he's exercising, he's on the elliptical, the basic numbers are coming in good. And maybe most of all, he is still intellectually alive and alert and making contributions. He's making his way through studies and engagement of faculty throughout the UCAL system, especially. This is one fighting member of our movement right now, and very important to preserve. How he's reacting specifically to this event, I need to talk more. I won't talk with him again till Friday of this week.
Right
now. Mumia is doing what he can do with the soul-slaying conditions of a prison. where the food and the water are not fit for human consumption, literally. For prisoners, it's not a problem for Mumia. It's a problem for all prisoners across the country. But he walks. So Mumia walks religiously between 3 and 5 miles a day. Since he had what kind of surgery? It was like a quadruple bypass surgery. Like his heart was taken out of his body, literally. So, and that's what Julia was referring to, that after you undergo that kind of procedure, you have to take care of yourself and what you eat. And we know that prison spends something like 20 cents a meal per prisoner, if not less. So he's doing what he can do. And for Mumia in particular, writing and thinking and studying is part of what keeps him engaged and going and in the conversation. But he's old. He's old, and I think what's pressing at this moment is that another series of boxes emerged a number of years ago with evidence that suggests that he was framed by Joe McGill, the prosecutor in the case. This is what we've been saying all along. A letter emerged in those boxes that were found in the darkest corners of the DA's office. These were boxes on his case, and there was a letter in there from the key witness used by the prosecution to put Mumia on death row and to convict him. Chobert is his name. What's his first name?
Robert.
Anyway, what was that?
Was it Robert?
Robert Chobert. Robert Chobert writes to the DA, literally, I've been trying to get in contact with you, and I talked to your secretary. I just want to know where's my money. Literally. Mm-hmm. Suggesting that his testimony against Mumia, his fingering of Mumia, was bought by the prosecution. So this is an example of prosecutorial misconduct. In any other case, this would have been found and the case would have been thrown out and the prisoner released. But we have a hearing on October 19th. And this is why these other papers, Mumia's papers, are important. Because in the context of a courtroom battle, a human being emerges. And this was the first time ever that the New York Times spoke positively of Mumia Abu-Jamal. That is the power of the archive of the papers. Mumia's glasses, that he wore famously, were in there. There was a letter written by another prisoner who's set to be executed in 2023 for his involvement in the killing of 4 prisoners during a prison riot. And in that letter, the prisoner says, I've been reading all of your books, and I'm trying to learn from you how to be a useful member of society. So this is not about Mumia. This is really about the affirmation of the humanity of all prisoners. And I'll just say one thing. I got a text from someone, I don't know if I can mention her name, who said that a friend of her mother's child, the child of her mother's friend, is imprisoned. And when they picked up the paper, the father wept because this affirmation of Mumia affirms the humanity of his own son who's imprisoned. So symbolically, this means something to us who understand the university and its place as an ideological state apparatus that is connected to power, right? And what it means for a university to have these papers and to study them and to study the fugitive intellectual. But to ordinary people and prisoners, this is huge, right? This is like, oh, we exist. We're human beings. Something that the prison at every turn attempts to strip prisoners of.
You know, that word study, studying papers, studying us. So I went and looked it up in the dictionary because I didn't know what the root meaning of it was. And I found that actually study comes from the word love, zeal, to pursue something with the zeal of love. And I remember what Dr. Joy James says about the highest form of love, agape, and how we can study things without having the faintest idea of what love is. And if we don't know how to love, how can we understand what we study? And if we spoke about that type of love to the police, they would say, what? Agape? What does that mean? And we'd say, that's a Greek word that means love. And the police would say, that's Greek to us.
Literally.
Literally. I would imagine.
Police are Greek to us too, so that's cool.
Exactly. How do we say? How do we speak?
Wait, Kalonji, my bad. Go ahead.
No. I'm just taking it all in right now, man. Just this is yes.
It will be interesting to watch how other elements that have traditionally repressed Mumia and his voice will continue to respond to this. We have recently, as you know, Maureen Faulkner's objection to Brown University doing this. I think
she was on Fox and Friends recently.
Pardon?
She was on Fox and Friends.
On Fox and Friends, so she is articulating probably not only the voice of the Fraternal Order of Police, but also a number of other elements that are wondering why Brown University, of all places, would lift up and be a center for Mumia's voice and his humanizing elements. But
don't worry, Professor Taylor, because Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald are increasingly calling for further engagement with Tucker Carlson and Fox. They're going on more and more, so they're dragging Fox and their audience over to the good side. Is at least the argument. So any day now, Fox and Friends and Tucker are going to start saying "Free Mumia."
That's when it's going to be a problem.
My bad. That was terrible. I couldn't help it. But all this new left populism, and we got to engage the conservative right as a way to advance the left. To me, is I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Sorry about that.
No, that again, I think that's a great point, and I hear it as a warning. It's like Johanna was saying, mass incarceration has become trendy in the academy too.
Yeah.
We have to fight that, and the way we fight it, I think, is sharpening up the antagonisms here as a movement. By sharpening the antagonisms, I mean, don't just let some conservative elite crew or cast, take something over, but show the opposition that has been mobilized against Mumia all along the way, and press the case against these institutions as defenders of the ideological apparatus. I don't know if if there's a way for our movement, or if this is even a good idea, because I haven't talked to others in the movement yet, but I don't know if there are ways for the movement to pull Brown into the fight, as it were, and to take a stand and to realize that they have the papers, in part because of a Johanna, but because of the movement that's kept him alive and fight for him. So as people with the papers now, why shouldn't they fight too with us, for Mumia's freedom and the comprehensive liberation he's always articulated? I don't know. We have to sort that through, but somehow I think we need to sharpen the antagonism to save this from becoming the kind of trendy and co-opting phenomenon that Professor Ball, you rightly worry about.
And I agree, Mark. That's part of organizing. You know what I'm saying? So I think that we should not celebrate, but we should definitely, sometimes the best way to get folks in the fight is to put them in the middle of the fight. You know what I mean? So there needs to be the bullhorn has to be, become louder, and folks have to know, like, yeah, okay, look at what Brown University is doing. Shame on you, Morehouse. What's up with you, Spelman? You know what I'm saying? Where you at, Clark? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing on behalf of our political prisoners? And at the very least, perhaps wherever the political prisoners from, here in Atlanta, they should be doing the same thing for Imam Jamil Abdul-Alameen. Yes, and in different areas. My question to you all is: do you think that this quote unquote trendiness right now is part and parcel to this whole the fact that Black folks are trending right now, as far as the whole Black Lives Matter type situation? Do you think this is a way for the academy to say, look, well, we're going to acknowledge this, and how do we connect this and make sure that it stays connected to enslavement as a whole? Because I think that part of this, to a lesser extent, it's cool to talk about prisons right now, but are we dealing with it from a historical perspective? Are we taking it all the way back and saying that this is the timeline? This is why Mumia is had been targeted. This is why Mutulu has been targeted, and Asada, and so on and so forth. Because my concern is that during this trendiness, it's a way to gloss over, and make it a little more smoother for folks to digest. So I wanted to know if you all thought that.
I think you're absolutely right, Kalanji. I think that this is a platform. I think this should be a platform to discuss the crisis of political imprisonment in the United States, that universities don't discuss. That is not a conversation in the public square. This opens up an opportunity for that to happen. And I think the reason why this is trendy and accepted in the university is complex. In fact, I think that it's a victory of a conversation and a movement that began in the 1990s when Angela Davis and others initiated the Critical Resistance Conference, right? And developed a term and mainstreamed the term the prison industrial complex. There have been marches, there has been organizing. The Black Lives Matter movement has been episodic, but together, these movements have forced this conversation into the public square. People generally know that the prisons are the new face of racism, right, in the post-civil rights movement era. That there's a connection between imprisonment and slavery. People know that the institution of the police can be traced to the institution of slavery. And what are the
Slave
Patty Rollers
and the slave patrols, exactly. So we need to deepen that conversation, right? We need to deepen that conversation in the public square, and we need to get dirty. We need to get dirty with these institutions, and press Brown to engage in a deeper conversation of the structural conditions that lead to imprisonment in this country, and the imprisonment of a particular group of people. So, and who is it that's writing about these issues? It's not the right. The right is not writing about political imprisonment and incarceration in the academy. It's historians and sociologists, who also need to be pressed to not just study, but to seek to overturn and transform an institution that they see and know to be an extension of slavery.
For one example of this, over 5 years ago, the New York Times published a group-written editorial entitled "End Mass Incarceration Now," on the basis of a 500 to 600 page study. Well, okay, if the New York Times is saying that, the scholars in the universities are taking up mass incarceration as they are, why do we still have the problem? We need to sharpen the awareness of the continuance of this vicious system at the same time that it's being indicted and it is being critiqued. It needs to throw the focus, I think, on the nature of the organization of white wealth in our society, the nature of class dynamics, as well as racism embedded in mass incarceration. So, somehow Johanna is getting these archives at Brown is a way for us to enter into the whole complexity of this, with all of our principles to the fore, one would hope.
When I was working in Africa, in Ghana, we were working with the liberation movements. We were putting out a newspaper that was supposed to be the voice of the liberation movements. And what we did see was the liberation movements, which I still believe are the fact that Nkrumah gave asylum to them is the real cause of the coup d'etat against him. These liberation movements were so real, so political, so deeply entrenched in a change that there had to be shadow liberation movements created right by their side by the CIA and others to mimic them, but without the spine, without the intent, without the real goal. And hopefully these shadow movements would take over. Sometimes did. So this may be happening in the United States with us, and we have to be aware of it, I think.
I'm thinking that this is a fascinating moment in American history. We literally have the rise of a neo-fascist movement. And at the same time, there's a conversation here at Black Power Media about the preservation of the papers of a political prisoner, veteran Black Panther, revolutionary. So we have two competing political streams. And unfortunately, our side has been weak in terms of putting our ideas out in the public sphere and fighting for them.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I just want to go back to what I do as a historian, which most, when I show up at Black Power Media, I'm not speaking as a historian. I'm speaking as an activist or organizer. But can you imagine understanding the institution of slavery or writing about it without the slave narrative. And how were slave narratives preserved? They were preserved in the 1930s in a project initiated by radicals. And they're held at the Library of Congress, probably. Radicals in the apparatus of, the beast essentially said it's important for us to preserve the stories of people who were enslaved who are still alive. And I'm thinking, for those of us who are in the academy, of Gayatri Spivak's article, Can the Subaltern Speak? Essentially meaning, can the oppressed speak for themselves rather than be spoken for by patronizing others who want to, in fact, mute their voices? So for me, as a historian, this is about allowing the prisoner themselves to speak, and for us to fight, not just for the voice of Mumia, but the voice of others in prison, to be part of a conversation about how to change society and end the hyper incarceration of Black people and Latinos in this country. And I'm also reminded of the African proverb, until lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. So we need to, this is an area of struggle politically that I think too many people poo-poo. And all of our great writers, people we look to, Du Bois, Angela Davis, Clark, Dr. Clark, all of these people were engaged in the university to some extent, and they produce works that that make us, who are revolutionaries and resistors, who we are today. What if that were accessible to everybody and not to the few of us who know something in the left or in the Black left?
I'm glad you pointed it out, because there's so many folks who sit back and criticize, right? But they do nothing more than criticize. Most of them won't even say free Mumia outside of an internet post. You know what I'm saying? Because they're afraid for their jobs. And I'm thinking about what you're saying. First of all, one thing that white folks do is they certainly serve as a formaldehyde to our struggle, to you know what I'm saying, from literally the bodies from, we talk about ancient Egypt and so on and so forth. They preserve us in museums, they preserve us in their institutions, because they like to examine and they like to go back and research, study, so on and so forth. I've had the opportunity on several occasions, just being an organizer throughout decades, different OGs, guerrillas, veterans who have been elders of mine, have offered so many, as you talk about those boxes of materials, everything from COINTELPRO files to all types of different books and papers and so on and so forth. And I couldn't even afford to house these things. And like you, I reached out to a number of different universities. I reached out to a number of different Black institutions, grassroots, etc. And no one had that capacity. But yet when you say, okay, boom, I'm going to take this to Brown University, and everybody got a problem with it. But no one would send you $5 to rent a damn storage unit. You understand what I'm saying? And this is just the contradictions that we have. And it's a sad state when we are literally homeless in this society. You understand what I'm saying? We don't have the capacity to preserve. We talk about institution building, and it sounds great in theory. But in practice, how do we go about supporting it? Not just establishing it, because we can establish anything. But how do we go about sustaining such a situation, such an apparatus, because we already know that for the HBCUs, I mean, they're black in name in many cases, and that's no disrespect to anyone, but it's not play no games. These are black skin, white mass, white skin. You understand what I'm saying? So I applaud you, all of you, for making an effort and staying on for the fight for Mumia, because one thing that I don't know if I mentioned, part of the reason why I'm involved in our People's Liberation Movement is because of a flyer that I saw about a rally for Mumia back in 86, 87 in New York, and I'm in Connecticut. That's what really helped to push me over the edge, along with the Joanne Chesimard wanted posters, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I coming from a family of workers, but those are the things that actually got me and sparked and said, okay, boom, I need to go to this rally. Who is this guy? You understand what I'm saying? And that's what took it there. So again, I applaud you for the years.
Kalonji out radicalizes me again, because I was introduced to Mumia in a similar way, but through the love of a good woman, as they used to say. That it was she was like, "You gonna come look at my presentation about Mumia?" And I was like, "Who? Okay." That's
you was commenting. She was Erykah Badu, huh? Had you wearing tight clothes and everything. Okay.
Yep, had me all switched up and everything. But
Jerry, you were going to say something when I
I admit, so I am struggling a little bit over here, because on the one hand, I am sensitive to the fact that you all have been doing incredible work for a very long time. I'm sensitive to all the my own failings personally, but and shortcomings. But I am struggling a little bit with I'm struggling a little bit with with how this is interpreted, or what the impact will be. So on the one hand, I get it. First of all, working at an HBCU all these years, even if there was physical capacity, I would be shocked if an HBCU would have stepped up and said, we'll take Mumia's pay. I mean, they would have probably been the first ones to run as far away. Right. And I get the and I get the issue, because yeah, absolutely. And I get the issue with just all these institutions being, as Kalonji said, largely black in name only, and black people, period, just don't have collectively, at least, the institutional power or resources to do a lot of these things. So on the one hand, and as an academic, I love it. I think this is great. I think when being able to go to the Schomburg, or now if I can go to Brown and look at all these papers, I mean, as an academic, as a researcher, as a journalist, even, this is great. It is going to be helpful, and so on. But in terms of some of the reverberating impact, this is where I'm struggling. So just some of the notes I was taking here, and I'm happy to have any of you, do what you will with these thoughts. One, I was wondering, I think Professor Taylor, you were saying something about, or somebody, or several of you had said something about this being a new moment with new discussion and positive reference to Mumia in pop or in more mainstream spaces. But I'm wondering to what extent you all think this is different from the point when Mumia himself was prominently positioned in mainstream spaces, for instance, through NPR, et cetera, and how that didn't propel him necessarily, or you could disagree with this too, into an improved condition of incarceration, or certainly to his freedom. It didn't free him. I'm wondering to what extent is this Brown University rebranding the struggle and moving the playing field symbolically? That was something else I wrote. Are they, in other words, so when Professor Fernandez, you're saying we have an interesting moment where there's a rise in neo-fascism, but at the same time we have an Ivy League institutional interest in preserving the papers of a still living political prisoner and Black Panther Party revolutionary. And this is sort of what I'm concerned that parallel, that rise of, to the extent that this is a new rise in neo-fascism, this is part of the neoliberal co-optation, symbolically saying, we will preserve what is now to be understood as a dead and entombed struggle, which is exactly how I felt, for instance, when the Smithsonian wanted to do the hip hop thing. And I was even asked to be involved. And I said no, because I was like, Black people aren't free, brown people aren't free, hip hop hasn't freed anybody, and the Smithsonian doing this is just entombing what should be a still vibrant struggle. So even with the preservation of the slave narrative comparison, yes, they're preserved, but to what extent do regular people still have access to them? I mean, I hear what Brown is saying, but the Schomburg existing or the Library of Congress existing hasn't meant this takeoff of study and investigation and radical organization around what is found and so on. And then lastly, and I'll stop here, to what extent is this preservation still not challenging the dominant narrative about Mumia? And then to the last point about the parable, is this now the lion not just having its tales told by the hunter, but its tales collected and preserved by the hunter? And then what does that mean? All right, so I've said it. So that's just what I'm struggling with here. And anyway, so but again, I'm happy to be. That's it. Anybody?
Could I just jump in here?
Please.
Because, Jared, I'm wondering whether there is a difference between entombing and memorializing. Because when my great uncle was lynched and we had nobody, and nobody was given to us, and we only have symbolic earth that was collected by kids in Elaine, and that was given to Brian Stevenson the other day in a jar. That is not entombing, although it could be literally so. It is memorializing. So what we're trying to do, or correct me, Johanna, are we not trying to protect our primary sources that are Black from being warehoused, thrown away, made expendable, so that they are protected against time and they are not short-lived like the lives of our prisoners are?
Absolutely. This is about the preservation of the story of probably the longest standing movement in the post-civil rights movement era. Think about the Mumia movement. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Unclear why. I know that Mark Taylor is the founder of Educators for Mumia. And I got involved in the Mumia work in part because I visited Mumia when I was a postdoctoral fellow at Carnegie Mellon, but also through Educators for Mumia. And I remember having events on campus, and our colleagues looked at us, with a side eye, like, you're defending who? It wasn't defending a political prisoner number of years ago was like, you're in hot territory if you're in the academy. You're not going to be respected. So what accounts for the shift? I like what you're raising, Jared. I think that these institutions are ruling class institutions where there are openings because we're there. Jared, I'm sure you've taught at one of these institutions or been part of them, right?
No, I'm in the academic hood, as they say. I'm at Morgan State University, but I get your point. I'm just messing with you.
Weren't you at Cornell at some point?
As a student, yeah, I was. Well, I was at the Africana Studies and Research Center.
I'd never.
Directorship of Dr. James Turner.
Well, you
but
know,
yes, at Cornell. No, you're right. Absolutely. I hear you. And
Pendy,
but
we're
what
all
happened
there.
there is actually part of my concern
Like
about
Joy
all of this. Yeah.
James. Joy James has done like a run through in all of these elite institutions, and she's made an impact, right? Her writings, pending revolution, Dr. Ball, pending revolution. How do we ensure that we preserve our history? No one else is going to preserve it, right? We have to fight for its preservation. As Kalanji said, and this is a really important issue, we do not have the institutional capacity as the Black left to preserve anything or to build anything. I mean, and that's work to be done. But pending that work, we gotta cook with the potatoes we have, right? And you know, in a revolutionary situation, who do you think is going to give us the keys to the kingdom? It's people who are working in these institutions, who are going to be swayed by the arguments, the morals of our side, which we don't often articulate effectively and eloquently enough in the streets, on the ground. I've been in battle with Brown University since that occupation of University Hall. And I feel every time I go and speak at Brown, I'm angry. I have the same anger that I have then. Brown wrote this incredible kick-ass press release that was influenced not by the board of trustees, but by the people who are trying to do the work in these departments that are oftentimes under siege. This new, Center for the Study of Incarceration that's looking at incarceration from the inside. All these books on incarceration, few of them actually give voice to the imprisoned. Amazing work. I was so happy that that they wrote this. I feel like we made up. I made up with Brown, but you can't be happy with these institutions for too long, because now I got a petition from graduate students at Brown who are being kicked out because they're organizing for fair wages. So that's the reality in which we live. The question is, do we abstain because we don't want, because we are too good, because our politics are too I don't know, stellar, and they could be diluted in conversation with a ruling class institution, or do we go to battle? I mean, and do we develop a strategy? I mean, I think the Mumia movement should be developing a strategy on how to use this to bring Mumia home, but also to bring the other political prisoners home and to shine a light on the hyper-incarceration of Black Americans and Latinos. Yeah, I know that Mark has something to say about this, and I wish he would say.
Well, yes, I was going to suggest it will be interesting to see if Brown will also foreground the other political prisoner movements and the other political prisoners and put their voices alongside Mumia's, and how they will do that, because that would raise the system-wide questions. It would, again, sharpen the antagonism at play and help resist what's a very real threat. I agree with Professor Ball here. He called it entombment. I once used the word around this is the risks of museumifying Mumia is something you now look at instead of seeing as a person who is part of movements that are still ongoing that might even involve Brown in some kind of resistant actions. Looking at this from the perspective of prisons, I'm sometimes very aware and fear the power of these large institutions to bestow occasional honorifics on radicals or radical movements and have events on campus about them, which then become a way to actually control those movements and hold them at arm's length, so that students and faculty don't really see the contemporary implications of those movements. This is what I meant when I said this is such an amazing achievement of preservation, these archives of Brown. But what does it mean to sharpen the antagonism that is still here? I mean, preservation is a fight, right? I mean, and will still be that, which is why I was glad, Johanna, you called people's attention to that last paragraph. Are they really going to see this as a people's collection? And what will that mean concretely? That's where we need to develop strategy. You're absolutely right, because the identification is a real threat.
So I definitely want to engage the fight and the struggle. And this is not so much a question, because my issue is less a question about should this have been done as it is a question of how will it be interpreted, broadly speaking. And because I get it. I mean, I get it. I've seen what happens when people try to leave boxes of materials. I've been asked specifically, can Morgan State help out? I've seen what the responses are. I get it. I get all of it. But specifically, like I'm thinking, you mentioned Dr. Clark, having done my own work on Dr. Clark and having gone and done not all, but I felt like at the time, maybe I did all the Schaumburg visits and read everything in all those boxes and looked through everything. I feel like I touched every single thing in there. I often feel like all of that is useless compared to the wave of less substantial but more popular information about Dr. Clark that comes in masses from all over the place elsewhere. In other words, it's almost as if the inundation of reference popularly and with, I think, less substance makes all that I would have experienced almost moot. And it does not lead to, just as I've argued about films and everything else, like a movie about Malcolm doesn't lead to mass, research and organization around Malcolm. So that's why I'm simply saying that I want those in our circles and spaces to say, okay, Professor Fernandez has done us a huge service and has taken advantage of a lane that has opened up here by getting all of this at Brown. So we are now going, myself included. So this ramble is going to lead to a specific question in a second, so that we, myself included, are going to say we're with renewed interest and vigor going to investigate these papers and get involved in the fight to not only free Mumia and other political prisoners, but take on this whole mass incarceration and everything else that it's in defense of. So in addition to inviting you to respond to anything else, please tell me, because I'm now very interested, and the rest of us, when do you think all of these papers will be accessible? When can all of our engagement begin? Can I go to Brown today on Labor Day? Can I drive up there this evening? And no, I'm just, but so, yeah. So in addition to anything else you'd like to respond to, please let us know that.
So, okay. Again, I think that the process we're engaged in is a dialectical one. It's one that has all these contradictions and is still in the making. How do these papers get to Brown? They were found through me, but then the small-time archivist who was trying to get me to give my papers to Brown had to go and battle it out with the institution. You think that the institution was like, oh, sure, no problem. Let's have the papers of Mumia Abu-Jamal here. We're about to be on Fox and Friends. But yeah, sure, no problem. No, there was a battle at Brown, a year-long battle over these papers and whether or not they were going to take them. So there are people inside fighting with those who really held the levers of power. We won. Huge. The papers are going to be used at Brown in these classes on mass incarceration, which I think is incredible. Because when you get young people involved, they have ideas and creativity that we often lack, right? You're asking Dr. Ball, okay, so what is going to happen with these papers? Are they going to see the light of day? And is what is going to be presented going to have an impact on the consciousness of this country or a section of this country? And will it lead to Mumia coming home? Well, like revolutions and movements are not born, they're made. That's where the subjective intervention of people like us and the movement is critical. Yes, if you want to go see the papers, Dr. Ball, you can go see them. They will be available today. We can make arrangements for you to see them today. Other people have already seen them. Journalists have seen them. They're being cataloged and they will be available in 2023. I was shocked. I was like, what? That quick? That soon? Because we know that kind of work takes skill and an enormous amount of resources.
It takes grad assistants, baby. And you know Brown got plenty of them.
Exactly. So they've got a little army of people working on these papers. Yeah. None of us. I mean, these damn papers were sitting. I didn't even know what was in the boxes. I looked through them, but I didn't have the capacity to really understand what was in them. So yes to all those questions, and it's up to us. It's really up to us to figure out how to catapult ourselves from the archive to the world. And I'll just say, Dr. Ball, the archive is a hella ruling class institution. Like, most people don't even know what the hell an archive is. What the hell is an archive? So it's an elite institution, and it's an elite conversation. And walking into an archive as a historian from the Bronx is, as a young graduate student, is a scary ass thing, because the archive was not created with people like us in mind, right? So for us to bum rush the show at the archive is like, all right. And everything doesn't have to lead to struggle and the revolution. The books we write, I Mix What I Like, transforms the lives of young people. Mm-hmm. I get emails all the time from ordinary people who are not even students, who are like, your book transformed my life. The power of education, of the type that we are committed to, is epic. And oftentimes we lose sight of that.
And I definitely thank you for that. And I get what you're saying, Jared. I look at it, one is we have two choices here. One of them is that somewhere down the line, 100, 150 years from now, someone would either unearth these papers in some moldy, musty basement, where they're all ripped up and trying to piece the shit together, so on and so forth. Or when it's time for quote unquote revolution, in the words of Killmonger, we know where to go get our shit back. At least we know it's at Brown. So when it's time, we know exactly where to go. We don't have to go looking around searching. Look, You know what I'm saying? It's time.
Killmonger, been claiming
Absolutely.
that.
Got to throw that
Day
in the
on
joint.
Team Killmonger. Yeah, right on.
Good. Uh,
Oh yeah, no, I just want to be mindful. I know we're set to we're not, there's no official end time, and we could, but we're officially set to wrap up in about 30 minutes. There's I've been collecting a number of comments and questions from the audience that if we have time I can work in. But yeah, go ahead, Mama Julia, go ahead.
I think there's something that Johanna said that is really deep, anyway, that echoes my own experience. She said, when you walk into the archives, you understand that that place is not for us. That's what I experience as the daughter of my father. I'm probably the only person left alive who can articulate the memories of my father, yet the Academy is not very interested in inviting the daughter of Richard Wright to hear about it, because what I have to say doesn't fit into their boxes. It's all a question of whose boxes are going to be opened and whose boxes are going to stay closed. What Johanna's doing is she's opening boxes. What the defense is doing is they're opening boxes. What Emmett Till's family has done is they opened boxes. What Move did is they opened the boxes of the bones. And we could go on and on and on. And that's where I feel that we are winning, because there's just so much room in their cupboards before the doors blow open under the weight of skeletons. 1968, the students invaded Columbia University, opened the cupboards there, and out fell boxes. They opened the boxes and they found not algorithms, because I don't think they existed back then, but equations. And what were the equations? They were by CIA scholars trying to determine the threshold at which African liberation movements would rebel. So this opening of boxes strategy, which Johanna has been so brilliant about, is absolutely giving the other side, not to name them, making them run scared, as we say, demoralizing them. I don't want to celebrate, but I think that's their weakness.
Well,
Right on.
very quickly,
Sorry,
I mean, Julia really articulates this brilliantly. Their strategy, which has been a winning strategy, has been the depiction of Mumia Abu-Jamal as a cop killer. And these boxes defy entirely that depiction.
Yeah.
And he was not discussed in that way in the papers. Not only the New York Times, but all the this was covered by everyone under the sun. All the channels in Philadelphia, the Washington Post, the LA Times, and nobody described Mumia as a cop killer.
Across the country, that was the case. And recall the end of the New York Times article featured the music that Mumia had composed, that human activity on the song Vampire Nation. Just one quick final word I might have. When talking to people about this, when the news broke about Brown, it seemed to me like many on the left were struggling between two reactions. On the one hand, there's kind of a left Puritanism, where we don't want to touch the powers of the elite institutions because supposedly we're moving in a more justice-oriented way. But thank God that Dr. Fernandez didn't work in that way. She worked the elite powers. There's another kind of tendency, a certain left complacency. Well, we made it at Brown. we made it into the New York Times. We can't do that either. And Dr. Fernandez, I don't see is doing that. And none of us are going to do that. We need to engage and fight both. And that's what I see going on. And that's that makes this a good moment.
All right, right on. Appreciate that.
Definitely.
Just very quickly, big shout out to Martin Hernandez for both the super chat and the correct analysis.
Martin knows. He knows what time it is.
A couple of thoughts from the audience here. Coco says, I was so disappointed when I wanted a video of Queen Mother Moore, but the cost to access was high. These institutions need to be held accountable when they guard our own or own our movement's work until we can. Would this be an issue with access to these papers that is cost to the community? It sounded like Brown was not putting up such a barrier.
No, Brown is not. It's
Okay.
not going to charge people for. It's going to put these things up on the web, and it's going to. And we need to hold the institution to their feet to the fire. They say that they're going to bring young people from Philadelphia to Brown to actually look and touch these things. That is a political act in and of itself, because the Fraternal Order of Police has successfully essentially attempted to erase Mumia from the history of that city.
Mm-hmm. Right on. So this, I think, answers the question from the very critical Malcolm X Center, WMXP Radio 95.5. I don't know when you showed up, whoever this is, but just to be fair, I get the criticism, and I know this reflects a certain sentiment that exists, but Professor Fernandez and our other guests have sort of addressed this issue in terms of the attempt to house this at a Black institution and why that was an issue. And yes, there will be online access for Black people and people around the world to see the papers and do research. And I'm sure Brown kicked in an endowment of millions to Mumia's defense fund on that. That was the next part. No, I'm just playing. No, but most of that, this criticism, I think, has been addressed. But if anyone wants to say anything else, please do.
Peace, Mama Fia out there in Greenville. Peace to you for.
Oh, is that who that is? Okay, right on, right on.
Sorry,
okay, peace.
The bell.
Yeah. That's all right. Thank you, Love Not Fear, for the 99 cents. Appreciate you. Yes, I agree. I'm waiting for. Have we already heard the announcement yet that Dr. Kelly is doing a book on? Not just the prolific, never stopping Robin D.G. Kelly. Shout out to him. Hiram Rivera, this is a real problem. Dr. Muhammad Ahmad, aka Max Stanford, has archives in boxes in someone's living room because he doesn't want these institutions to have them, but nowhere to place them. Right. So, and other than an offer being made for these papers by an elite institution, what might you suggest from this experience, Professor Fernandez, or anyone else, that Dr. Ahmad might or those wanting to work with him might follow up on? I'm tempted to say I got basement space.
Hey, but before you answer that,
no, go ahead. Yeah,
before you answer that, for our esteemed chat and all the good folks out there, we know that we lack these type of institutions. So I'm proposing you all Black Power Media in getting a warehouse so that we can begin some type of archiving type.
You know
situation.
what?
So
Kalanji, thank you for that.
We can put the money where our mouth is and start with that. We can get Johanna and Mama Julia and Mark on the board and get this thing moving. And then that way we don't have to complain anymore. We don't have to say, look, we don't want it to go into any white institution. We want it to go into any Negro institution. We can say, okay, boom, we have a place and this is how we do it. Because otherwise, we're going to keep relying on Black folks who don't have our interests at heart either.
In fact, I had meant to do this as a break at some point, so I'm a little late with it, but let's just go ahead and get that reminder in now before we wrap up and get to some more of these questions and allow our panel to respond to Hiram. Hold on one second.
Let me show these suckers how to ball out here. Oh, man, let me get this together here. Oh, layup. Oh, no. Shot. Oh, three. Oh, it's like Brick City out here. Mid-range. Oh, my goodness. I can't buy a bucket out here. I missed the whole damn basket. Oh, my goodness. What's going on, man? My game is looking trash. Oh, here we go. Black Power Media shirt. Now we cooking. Tree. I'm taking all three of y'all with these right here. Between the legs. Oh, my goodness. Behind the back. Layup. Oh, did he just do a reverse? He is in beast mode out here. I ain't got to look. It's falling. Oh, my goodness. This guy is going 3, 2, 1. Kobe. Nice. Black Power Media, baby. Nice. Empower yourself. Go get you some of that Black Power Media again. Right here, blackpowermedia.org. Yeah.
All right. There you go. That's all it takes. A little bit of subscribing, a little bit of merch, and we will have an archive, etc., and so forth. So,
and for the right price, we'll even send the ear doctor to your house. How about that with his basketball? Anyway, go ahead.
And how about he shows up and records the next drop with you on location at your spot? That's what I think. We send ear doctor everywhere. And anyway, that's just
I guess they're confused. They're like, what the hell just happened? Don't worry, I don't know either. But anyway, go ahead.
Nobody knows. But yeah, does anybody want to respond to what Hiram is raising here in this issue? Because I think this is true. I've experienced it with folks wanting to leave stuff. Others have stuff compiled. There's a lot of important documents and histories that need preservation and sitting in people's basements and storage units, etc. What do we say about this? Perhaps nothing.
No,
nothing?
I have. No. I want others to speak. Mark, Julia.
Well, no, I pass. I pass.
I'll just say briefly. Maybe Brown can't do everything with this archives, but again, I'm remembering of something that Professor Joy James has said all along the way of our movement. About the risk of making Mumia an icon. That's always been a real danger of the movement, even as we foreground his struggle. So what would it mean to think about the issues engaged in these boxes sitting in the living room in relationship to the issues Mumia has engaged all of his life? To think comprehensively about struggle and different agents of resistance, different movement groups. Why shouldn't Brown be one place also for other people's and resistors' materials to be archived? I don't know. There are probably numerous negotiations that would have to go on, but I think they should go on if this is really to embrace wider struggle and not just one powerful voice in that struggle.
So this issue of archiving is really serious. It requires resources and it requires skill. You have to go to school to become an archivist. There's like a certain temperature that papers need to be housed in specific boxes. There's a protocol. And the question is, given where we are in terms of the absence of institutions and resources, what is our priority? Is our priority making a U-turn and figuring out how we ourselves can preserve these papers, which is a time-consuming operation? Or are we going to put our resources elsewhere, as in Black Power Media, right? This is probably one of the most important forms of resistance in this period. There's a battle over the ideas that are going to lead in this period. For that reason, I think that Max Stanford needs to find a home for them, because the basement is going to get flooded, and it happens every day, or it's going to burn down. It happens all the time. And with that catastrophe, an entire body of history is lost. So pending, the building of our own institutions, we need to rely on these other institutions and pressure them to make them available, and do the right thing. The Smithsonian, there are plenty of people inside the Smithsonian who are like us, whose perspective on the world is very similar to ours, and they have pressured the Smithsonian to collect the stories of people like us. And they have the resources to do this. And as someone said in the comments, or I don't know if it was Kalanji, when the time comes, we'll know it was Kalanji. We'll know exactly where to take them back, where to get them. But I do, at this particular moment, given where we are in the world, objectively speaking, I do not see the preservation of papers being something that we ourselves do. I mean, we'd have to reorder our lives right now to take on that project. And we'd have to raise funds, a lot of funds, to get a building with the conditions necessary to organize papers. And there are papers everywhere. This is the history of struggle, of resistance, of the Black radical tradition is about to be lost, because all of these people are coming of age right now. I mean, they're in their golden years, and we need, they need to be preserved. And I would say we need to rely on these institutions that we dislike if we want to preserve our history, which I think is paramount. I think that 150 years from now, people must know about the struggles of Max Stanford.
Right on.
So we're well on our way to establishing that archive, thanks to Franny French. We're $20 closer to the BPM archive that will. So seriously, thank you, Franny, for the support. Big Teal is asking, is someone assigned to work on them and look after the documents? I don't know if that has already been, and what does Johanna need for this endeavor? What is she trying to do now? So both of these Big Teal questions about is someone assigned to these documents? And Johanna, what do you need now? And what are you doing now? And what do you need help with?
So Mary Murphy at Brown University is the person assigned. She's the one who came to my house, was trying to get my papers. And I was like, oh, and by the way, she was the one who led a struggle inside the institution to make sure that Brown did right by Mumia and acquired these papers. So she's assigned to them at this moment. I have access to them. You have access to them whenever you want. But they're definitely going to be available to the public in 2023. What do I need? I need people to come to an organizing meeting that's happening in September around Mumia and the upcoming hearing in the courts on October 19th over other boxes that have evidence that Mumia is innocent and was framed by the DA's office. So I mean, personally, I do not need anything, because that's it. The papers, we've been freed. My closets have been freed. I do not have the burden, because it was a burden having all of these boxes and trying to figure out who's going to preserve them. Like, that was a burden on me. But now I am confident that Brown is going to do the right thing. Whether they're going to be entombed, I don't think so. But that depends on us, right? So what we really need is for people to commit to building organization, right? That issue that Kalanji raised. How do we start? We start right now. We need to support organization. And we need to come to this meeting. I think Julia has the details of that meeting.
Well, on the 9th of September, there's going to be the yearly run down the walls, not run up the walls, but run down the walls. And that's a big, big marathon to raise funds for political prisoners. You all know about it. If you want to register, go to Cindy on the chat, Cindy Miller. She will be the one. Wow, yes, thank you. Okay.
I think we have a guest coming on. I'm sorry.
How do I get him on?
Can you put him on speakerphone?
Well, I'll try. I don't think it'll work.
I'm sorry not to cut you off.
Can I transfer him to?
Yeah. You can.
Well, what do I do?
He would need the link.
No, I need a number, guys.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's no.
Yeah,
what's the number?
Call my number. Transfer.
Call your number, Kalanji. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm on Black Power Media with Julia Wright, Mark Taylor, Kalanji Changa, and Jared Ball. We're talking about the papers. Could you join this conversation quickly? All right. I'm going to transfer to you, Kalanji.
Okay, cool.
So the second date is, I believe, the reaction of the other side to what we've done, other than Maureen's reaction. I may be wrong. On the 7th of October, Michael Schmerkonish is organizing.
Peace.
Maybe hold
Where's
on.
that?
Okay.
Yeah, let me mute some folks.
Okay.
Let's
Peace,
can we
Mumia.
try that again.
Yes.
Can you all hear?
We are all here, I believe.
Okay, right on. Can folks in the chat hear? I mean, can you guys hear us?
Yeah, we should be good. That should be good. And big shout out and all the love and respect to that hero right there.
Yes.
Were you asking me a question?
We hear you well.
What was the question?
First of all, we're happy to hear you on deck. How's everything going out there?
As well as can be expected. I mean, it's like, how are you in what department of hell? And is it as hot as it is, everywhere? Prison is hell.
Right on.
So,
right on.
But, other than that, we're still struggling. And I'm doing pretty well for a geezer.
Hey man, you the coolest geezer we know. We're here live on Black Power Media. We have Mark Taylor, Julia Wright, Dr. Jared Ball, and of course Johanna. And this is Kalanji, and we're absolutely happy to have you on with us today. We was talking about the archives over at Brown, and we wanted to know, how do you feel about it?
Well, it was a surprise. And, once I heard about it, I was like cool with it. They expressed a desire for that. I didn't crack on them. In point of fact, Johanna, who was an undergraduate at Brown, as the story goes, was very active in her undergraduate years, protesting against the university and she wanted more inclusion with Black and Latino students and other issues, and they contacted her and said they wanted her papers from the protest era. She was fine to recruit them and turn them over. And then she said, I have something you might be interested in. And when she explained that she had over 40 boxes of my property, I'm told that the archivist she was talking to almost fell off of her chair. And she was like, what? She explained what it was. She said, we're interested. So, the rest is history, so to speak. It is what it is.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
I am told that this is the beginning of their mass incarceration collection. Given the rates and stage of mass incarceration at the beginning of the middle of the 21st century, that should be one hell of a collection. There are millions in prisons in America, more than anywhere else in the country. So there's a lot of room and a lot of data to be archived, and I'm glad to be a part of the process.
Right on, right on. Well, we're glad to have you on deck. We have a few other hosts. I don't know if they want to ask you anything or say anything. I think everyone's all happy and astonished and grateful to hear your voice this morning.
Well,
Yeah, everybody should be able to.
I like surprising people sometimes, and I think, some people were surprised by this story. So,
No doubt.
say la vie.
Well, I'm reading all of these messages that you're getting from the audience.
Somebody saying something?
Yeah, this is Dr. Johanna said she's reading all the messages that you're getting from the audience, and she's happy to hear. She was just getting an echo, I believe, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
Right on. Anyone else? Any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize from the chat room, we get these chat lines that come across the bottom of our screen.
Julia Wright, who's been with me for longer than we both want to admit, but I have not heard her voice or seen her joyous face in too long. And we're old friends and come from movement families, and I greet her.
Yes, we will.
Mark, I usually contact and communicate with him at least weekly.
This Friday.
We're old friends, and I think we've grown grayer in this movement.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
I thank you for your questions, comments, and contributions.
Right on. We love you, brother. What can we do for you to assist in your plight at this moment?
You can do for me with every, especially in prison, but even non-imprisoned black writer wants. Read my stuff.
Right on.
Because it's written for readers. It ain't written for me. And, I have fun writing it. And I just hope people have fun reading it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. We're gonna definitely post more of your material on the platform and make sure that as far as the book club, you're the next up. How about that?
That sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Right on. We appreciate you for sure. Johanna, anyone else want to say anything?
Just please
Dr.
pass
Ball?
greetings from one of his biographers. Todd Stephen Burrows is in the building, sending his greetings. I, of course, send my own and apologize to you publicly, Mumia, for only writing a handful of times over the years. But it's an honor to hear from you always. So thank you very much, and continued struggle
you hear
and
Dr.
support
Ball?
and good health.
I couldn't hear anything, but can you
Okay,
translate that
just
for me?
pass on some of that, please.
I'll translate. Dr. Ball said Dr. Todd Burrows Stevens, one of your biographers, is in the audience. He wanted to shout you out, and also he wanted to thank you for all his work, all your work throughout the years, and he apologizes, this is Dr. Ball, for not writing you more often. And I just did a hell of a translation piece, so you know, some of
Right
that
on.
was
Good
said.
enough.
How about
Thank
that?
you very
Facebook
much.
folks says free
Beautiful.
Mumia.
And give my greetings to Brother and Dr. Burroughs, and keep up the good work.
Right on. Dr. Hernandez, you said something?
No, I'm just reading the messages that people are sending me are just beautiful. Someone said, hold your head, hero. Then we have someone here saying, read Mumia today, tomorrow, and every day. I just think you guys should read these beautiful messages.
Mhm.
Right on, right on, right on. Could you did you hear Dr. Fernandez?
I heard. No, I did not.
Okay. She was telling us there are people in the chat right now that is saying, hold your head up. We love you, Mumia. Your freedom is our freedom. They're saying read Mumia today and tomorrow and every day. It's about 200 something people in the chat right now, and different folks are commenting and expressing their love and gratitude for you.
Mhm.
So you know, on behalf of them, I just want to say, man, it's a wonderful day, and we're gonna we look forward to seeing you walk from behind those gates.
And there should be
Thank you, brother. And
England
to those
in
making those comments, I hope you hear me clearly as I can make this. I believe and I know that love is the most powerful force in our universe. It is energy that is raw, that cuts through everything. I know it, I felt it, I feel it. And if I could say this to our greater Black community, just, keep loving each other. Love keeps us in this creation. So, keep on loving and everything else will fall into its place.
Right on, right on, right on. Definitely. Again, we appreciate your words. I'm gonna try to. I'm realizing I have these headphones on. Can you all hear?
Yeah, we hear him.
You want to try to say
fine.
something now?
Yeah.
Anyone out there? I don't know if this is if Mumia can hear you from here.
could you tell Mumia
Well,
that
this is, I think, a positive and a tremendous opportunity. And if you were surprised, then welcome to the party, because so was I. I thank Johanna for offering it. And, it gives me a stretch beyond this institution to another institution. One is a life-taking institution. The other is a life-expanding institution. Guess which one I prefer. Prison is a death place. It's a necro place. Libraries and archives are places where, our ancestors rest between arms of leather, and their ideas are immortalized in these archives and in these libraries. We can go and we can read James Baldwin. We can read Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton. And I'm glad to kind of join this library of elders.
Right on. Man, I'm gonna keep it honest with you, Mumia. I'm sitting here and I'm all nervous asking you questions. I'm looking at folks like, jump in, because as I mentioned earlier, if I was to give anybody credit for my work or getting involved, it was due to a poster for a rally that I saw about your case back in 86, 87. And I grew up in movement, but that right there, really pushed it over, along with, like I said, the Asada posters, wanted posters, the Joanne Chesimard posters I saw in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But seeing that poster of you about a rally in New York that I knew I had to go to, I was like 15, 16 years old. That really pushed it over the thing. And I wanted to say that to you because I've had several convos with you, but I don't think I ever expressed that. And I'm very grateful. And I feel like, I need you to know that you are a hero to many of us, and we are very grateful. Yes.
I just want to say that you have to think about the power, right, of a poster.
Yes.
We don't think about that, especially now in this, multimedia age and, the synthetic news that we have that's flashing through the air. But a poster is a piece of art that projects a revolutionary idea that is received by a 15-year-old, right? And it changes the trajectory of one's life. I say that because there was a time I was that 15-year-old.
Yes.
A sister named Andrea gave me a copy of the Black Panther newspaper. And another sister gave me a copy of Ramparts magazine, and my mind was promptly blown. Wow. And when
you have 1 minute left.
When I saw those brothers and sisters in Cali, I knew that I had found home.
Right.
And I joined the Black Panther Party, and even though we didn't have one in Philly, we built one in Philly. That's how. So the power of a poster, the power of a newspaper, the power of a magazine is what? The power of communication, to communicate transformative ideas to people and change the trajectory of their lives, hopefully for the better. So we're doing that right now.
Yes, sir. We're
and
here.
I thank you all, right, for being there. And it's just another form of communication between hearts, souls, and minds. I thank you all. I wish I could hug and kiss your whole panel.
Soon.
And hug and kiss the people in the audience. And I thank you all. I love you all. On the move.
On the move.
Long live John Africa. Long live France Fanon. Long live Revolution.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for using Securus. Goodbye.
Love.
Yes, power.
Wow. Thank you both, Johanna, Kalanji. Thanks for arranging that.
That's Johanna. I can't take no credit for that.
That wasn't arranged. That he
Or-
just called.
Oh wow. Well, I meant go from the call to getting it on air.
Right on.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being on and being somebody who would receive a call from Mumia. How about that?
I'm not even gonna front. I'm sitting here. I'm not usually a nervous dude. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, but I mean, just because, just with us sitting here, just talking about this energy, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that the love that's on this panel right now, I have tremendous respect. This is the first time that I've heard Mark speak, but just from what I've heard as far as your contributions, I honor and respect you, just as Mama Julia and Johanna. It's like, it was just like, I don't know. I was cool with just the panel, you know what I'm saying? But to just hear, get the opportunity to hear Mumia's voice during this particular joint is incredible. It's wonderful.
It's very emotional.
No doubt.
Yes,
no doubt.
That part.
Let me just thank it. Sorry, go ahead.
Just seeing the love of the people in the chat lines was amazing too.
Yeah, I tell everybody, relative to these YouTube streets, we have a growing but still relatively small but thoughtful audience. So I'm not surprised that he would be shown that kind of love by our audience. I'm a little surprised that there wasn't more, but yeah, I would expect that. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap up here in a few minutes. So let me give everybody any final, time to make any final thoughts. And Mama Julia, can you please, if I don't have it already, either restate the announcements or send the links that we need so I can put them in the show description.
I'll send everybody to Cindy Miller in the chat if they want to register for Run Up the Walls or Run Down the Walls, the marathon for political prisoners. And you mentioned, Joanna, that at the end of that marathon, there would be a political strategy session to plan the meaning of the 19th of October, which is Mumia's court next court appeals session. There is just one other date I stumbled on this morning, and I don't want us to end on this note, but I have to give you the date. It's the 7th of October. Michael Smirkanish is organizing a mammoth meeting at the Convention Center in Philly on media and politics, has invited everybody he knows, which is plenty of folk, and has given the keynote speech to the former admiral of NATO in Philly. So this is the co-author of Murdered by Mumia. So is this on the 7th of October something that they are stating in advance of the 19th? I have no idea. This is open to your strategy session. We'll have to talk about it.
And when is the Run Down the Wall marathon again? I think it's a 5K.
It's September 11th, and I already put the link in the show description so people can refresh their browsers and get that information. But it says here it's September 11th or 18th. Stay tuned to our blog for more details. So that link is in the show description for people to follow up with.
Also, any other announcements, Mama Julia, make sure you email us so we can constantly run it until to whatever dates. So
okay,
so okay. This isn't a one-time hit.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Right on. Anybody else? Any concluding thoughts? Again, let me just thank each of you for coming on today. I appreciate you and all this continued good work. And just want to remind you and everyone else that my show BPM as a platform exists for these discussions. So keep us in your media rotations and diets and announcement email lists, etc., so forth. And of course, everyone, make sure you've liked, shared, and subscribed, joined, and all that other good stuff. And check the Patreon and everything else at blackpowermedia.org. But anything else that we forgot or I forgot to mention, etc., so forth?
We should probably celebrate the arrival of Sundiata Acoli, the political prisoner that was most recently released. After many years in the New Jersey dungeon, and we need to keep moving. That's why people need to be at the September 11th meeting, a strategy meeting about what to do on October 19th, which is the day of the courtroom appearance to discuss the framing of Mumia, literally.
So, and what is the information about that meeting? And you're saying folks can attend this virtually, I'm assuming?
So after the Running Down the Walls marathon or 5K, immediately after that in Philadelphia, there's going to be a strategy meeting. And I imagine there will be access to Zoom, and people should just tune in to that or attend the meeting in Philadelphia. This is probably one of the most important moments in the history of the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. So we need to show up in court on October 19th, and we need to strategize. What is it that we're going to do to amplify Mumia's innocence and his humanity?
By the way, if you know or if anybody's interested in BPM broadcasting that meeting, let us know.
Yes, and I was going to say that you beat me to it.
Okay. Oh, my bad. Yeah, let's.
Jay still in my line. It's all good.
Absolutely. And Mark wanted to say something.
Sure. Just to say, one good way to prepare for the strategy meeting for October hearing is to read the really fine legal brief that Mumia himself is very pleased with, that his latest lawyers have put together, which is one of the best arguments I've seen all the way through of how Mumia has been framed. by the Philadelphia system, centering on Joe Gill and all the rest. So it's we find legal briefs daunting, all of us, but this is a very clearly written document that we would do well, I think, to all have under our belts, maybe.
Right on.
Yes.
Well, listen, Professors Taylor and Fernandez, thank you very much. Mama Julia, thank you very, very much for putting all this together. Brother Kalanji, of course, thanks to you for helping set this up and participating. To all the remixers, thank you for joining us this morning, those who are here live and who will see and hear this later. And as always, if you got more to say,
put it in the comments.
Help us grow and get there. And help us continue to deliver that
message.
All right, everybody. That's right. So like Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace only because we know you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time. Thanks again. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.